What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Pat's Pulpit Mock Draft Show, Episode 8. I am Ryan Kieran. That is Keegan Stiefel. And in Spag's place tonight, we got Pat at plane_Pats on Twitter. Pat, how you doing tonight? Thanks for
What's
hopping in.
up? Hey, happy to be here, man. Excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, and it's great to have you on. We had talked about doing kind of a guest spot for you anyway, and then Spags Spags is leaving us for greener pastures this week on a nice little vacation. So it was
Warmer pastures for sure.
Yeah, warmer pastures for sure. Keegan, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Sad news this week for everybody, but me and Pat will get into that later. Excited to see how things have changed, not just for the Patriots, but for everybody.
So tonight we will be doing a one-round mock draft. The chat's going to be involved again. If you guys were here last week, it's going to be a similar format, except this week we are adding in trades back into the mix. So here's how it's going to work. We're going to spin a wheel, as we always do, to set the draft order. When the chat's turn is to pick, we're each going to nominate a player, just like we did last week, but you will have a fourth option now, which is to trade back. We're not going to have the chat trade up. It was too complicated. So when it's the chat's turn to pick, you'll have three players or trade back to pick from. You're going to go to the comment section. You're going to comment your favorite, which of those four options you like the best. Whichever one wins after a minute, we'll throw a timer on the screen. Whichever one has the most comments is going to be the one we go with. So if you guys were to choose trade, we'll negotiate the trade terms. We'll pick the team. We'll make the trade, and then we'll nominate players from there, and we'll go again. And we will also be making trades amongst ourselves. So that's how tonight's going to go. Real quick, though, we have some big news before we get into tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So the draft is 2 weeks from tomorrow on the April 29th is round one. And we are going to be doing a live draft show right here. It's going to be hosted by me and Keegan. Pat's going to be there a bunch. Spags will be in there. Fellow Pat's Pulpit members like Brian Phillips are going to be here. We're going to be getting guests from other teams to come in and talk. It'll be like a perfect second screen for you guys while you're watching the draft from home. Obviously, it's still mostly quarantine. I'm sure you won't be doing too much for the draft. So we're going to be live wherever you're watching us right now. You'll be able to watch us again that night. We'll be reviewing each pick. We'll be talking about what the Patriots might do, reviewing what they do, what they didn't do. Just like our own broadcast, because everyone knows that the broadcasts on live TV now have gotten a bit repetitive and stale. So we'll be hopefully bringing you a different and Pats-centric live show for you to watch on your second screen as we go out through draft night. So it'll be Thursday, April 29th, going live probably shortly before the draft starts and carrying you through that entire first round on Thursday night.
I would like to point out that Ryan just said doo-doo. That is the type of content that you will not get anywhere else other than the Pat's Pulpit live stream. So you got to tune in. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, and we're all really excited for it. We got big plans for it.
I apologize. I'm 5 years old. I apologize.
That's going to be a clip. Absolutely going to be a clip.
Yeah, absolutely. So Keegan and I will be hosting it. Pat will be there most of the time. He'll be hopping in and out to do some live reaction type stuff. It's going to be just a really relaxed format. You guys are going to come in. You're going to comment like you do during this show. We're going to have different guests hopping in and out. It's going to be just a relaxed, a fun time where we've been talking about the draft for 2.5 months almost now, in earnest. So by the time it comes, it'll be good to really get the fruits of our labor there. So be on the lookout for that. We'll certainly be hyping it up on Twitter and across all formats. So don't miss that in 2 weeks from tomorrow. But for tonight, let's get into the mock draft. We'll spin the wheel here. Again, we have 4 options. Pat will be playing Spags tonight, so he gets the Spags role here. So let's do a spin.
Chat Ryan Spags.
Keegan gets the. I feel like you've been stuck with the Trevor Lawrence pick most of the time, Keegan.
It's like 6 out of the 8 weeks.
Right. So Chat will get the second pick, and then 6th and so on. I'll be picking in the 3rd slot, and Pat will be picking in the 4th slot. So Pat, just a reminder on how this works. You'll be picking for the Falcons, then again for the Panthers, Eagles, so on.
Got it.
All right, let's get into it. The inaugural Trevor Lawrence pick. Always, Keegan. You don't even need to be saying anything here.
Trevi.
So let's get right to the Jets pick. Obviously.
Hey, can we talk about the Trevor Lawrence thing? Did you see that Trevor Lawrence thing today? The quotes today?
The long form article that came out.
Well, no, the ones I want to read them to you because, bro, it blew me away. Some of the quotes, I had it pulled up on my phone and then I blew it. But the quotes about how he could walk away tomorrow and it'd be no big deal.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, like, it's insanity, dude. Could you imagine? Like, he's not. I want to win a Super Bowl at all costs, is what his dad said, and then someone else said his high school coach said he could walk away from it tomorrow and be fine. What? Like, how is that a positive? How can you find anything positive about that? Like, there's nothing.
I kind of respect it. I mean,
I honestly do too.
Yes, but
like the balls that takes to just be like, dude, I don't need this. Like, that's pretty sweet.
Listen, that's true. That is true. But again, what happens if you look at how much of a hit Josh Rosen took for that? What happens if Justin Fields is coming out and saying that? You know what I mean? Like, I
completely agree with that portion in terms of how media would perceive it. Justin Fields would be dead. Did you get to read? So that was part of like a big profile.
I didn't read. I did not read the whole article.
So in the context of the article, obviously, an article always gives more context. It was more so like he's basically been considered the best since he was like 14. So he basically was saying, I can't manufacture that chip on my shoulder that has made Tom Brady so great. Baker Mayfield has it, even though he went first overall. That type of stuff.
Right.
He said it's just not in his nature because he's always been on top. And so for him, his passion comes from like a love of the game and wanting to be the best version of himself that he can be, basically, and not like, I have to do this to prove everyone wrong, was more what he was saying.
It still scares me. It would still scare me because especially when he's going to the Jags if they stink, and the Andrew Luck vibes too, for sure. Like that's another one where it's like, what if he goes to the Jags?
Just gonna retire in 6 years and get into architecture or something.
Right. I mean, what if he goes to the Jags and they stink and he stinks his first few years because they're terrible, and now all of a sudden people are like, what the hell happened to Trevor Lawrence? How come he's no good? And then what happens to his psyche after that? So like, it would concern me. Again, I'm still taking him number one overall, obviously, but that would concern. That's a red flag for me.
I think I saw. We'll kind of re-speak this a little bit and get to the draft, but I saw a lot of people kind of just saying that they respect the fact that he's not trying to make up these things, and he's being true to who he is. Like,
right.
A lot of other guys would be like, oh, even though I've been the number one pick since I was 8, like people doubt me and stuff like that. He's not doing that. He's
right.
He understands the position he's in and what it means, and I think as long as he's being truthful about the way he feels and stuff like that, that's all good signs to me, if I'm picking a franchise quarterback.
The chip on the shoulder stuff's great for like Tom Brady, who has, legitimately reasons for a chip on the shoulder. But when you're looking at like Baker Mayfield obviously was kind of overlooked for most of his college career, but he ended up going first overall. And he still talks about, no one believed in me. Like, bro, you went first overall, relax. So I do get the concern, and I like the Andrew Luck vibes comment a lot, because that is the concern, right? Is that maybe he sustains a couple injuries, the team's not going in a great direction, and he just doesn't want to do it anymore, and he retires early.
Right.
But I don't think that's necessarily like Andrew Luck still had a couple seasons where he was, in the MVP top 5 type conversation.
True.
He never had like that sustained success, but in terms of like hitting his peak, I don't think that super concerns me.
Yeah.
But it is for sure weird to hear from an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
But all right, let's get into the second pick with the Jets.
This is the
chat picking. So we'll nominate 3. Obviously, the pick here is pretty set in stone, it sounds like. But let's see what the chat thinks. So we'll go in order of the way that we pick. So Keegan, you can nominate the first player.
I'll go with Justin Fields.
You'll go Justin Fields. I'll nominate Zach Wilson, and then Pat, who would you like to throw up for the chat to pick from?
Who would I like to throw up? I can't. I get Mac Jones. I'm not throwing up Justin Fields. Screw you. I'm not throwing up Justin Fields. Okay.
Chat, you'll be able to trade every other pick, but the Jets have already come out and said they're not trading this pick, so I'm not going to let you do that tonight. So we're going to pull a timer on the board, and then you guys will have a minute. So between Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones, who would you like the Jets to select? You'll have a minute now. So send in those comments now. All right. Well, let's talk about this Trevor Lawrence stuff a little bit longer while the chat sends in their comments. So it's not something that I think you would need is necessarily a red flag in terms of like, don't draft this guy number 1. Like you're not saying that, Pat, either. where you don't need to start rethinking the pick. But I like your comment about if Justin Fields said this, like he'd be a second round pick already. Like it's something that not everyone can get away with.
Right. And I think that's to me is the biggest point. Like, they're already talking about Justin Fields doesn't love football and it's not important to him. And it's like, stop it. Like, couldn't you say the same? I mean,
they're saying that about the guy who like single-handedly fought for his team to be able to play and his entire conference to be able to play. Like this guy stood in front of the board and was like, I want to play football, but no, he hates the game. And don't get me started.
It's a frustrating context that, it doesn't take much digging to figure out why the media handles things a certain way, but we won't get into it tonight. The chat ended up going with Zach Wilson with 4 votes to Fields 2, 5 votes to Fields 2. So Zach Wilson is the pick, as it's probably going to be on draft night. So I'm picking with 49ers here. Obviously, they already made their trade, so I won't be looking to trade this. I'm going to go with Justin Fields. It still sounds like Mac Jones is the pick. I still refuse to believe that Mac Jones is a locked-in pick. He might end up being the pick. I refuse to believe they've already made up their mind there, though. So I'm going to go with Justin Fields, who's my QB2. We've talked about it for 8 weeks now.
Yep.
But Pat, that takes you on the board. Your first pick here with the Falcons at 4.
Yeah. Now, if I'm the Falcons, I'm trying to trade back. I'd like to trade back.
So let's talk about it for a minute. Do you have any?
Well, so this is the problem for me. If I'm the Falcons, I don't think I can trade back at this point because I don't think anyone's trading up to 4 for Mac Jones or Trey Lance. I don't. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe they will. But I don't believe that anyone's going to do that. And so if Justin Fields drops to 4, I think that's a good thing for Atlanta. If Trey Lance drops to 4 or Mac Jones drops to 4, that doesn't really help them, I don't believe. So I think Atlanta is going to be kind of stuck unless, they're willing to give up not as much to move back. And I just don't feel like they should give up less. And so for me, that means I'm going to stick with the pick because I feel like that's the most likely scenario in this case. And what I'm going to do is I am going to shore up the offensive line and go with Penei Sewell.
Okay.
First time we've had that, I believe. Yeah.
Since you haven't been on here, so we're highlighting tight ends tonight. I mentioned that at the top. I should have reiterated that. But since Pat hasn't been on the show yet, I kind of want to hear his thoughts as he makes his pick. So tell us a little bit about what you like about Sewell.
So Sewell is just a monster. He's an absolute monster. And, you can make the argument that Rashawn Slater is maybe a little bit more polished on the offensive line. But Sewell he's the guy. Like he is the prototypical left tackle, could be the best player, the best tackle in the league in a few years. And he has everything. Right. And so he's that guy where you look at it and be like, okay, he's the one. Like he is the one. Right. And so I think a lot of people had talked about the Jets keeping Sam Darnold and drafting Sewell at 2, which I didn't necessarily hate if you could re-sign Darnold for cheap, if you thought Darnold was viable. And give you 2 ridiculous offensive tackles. But I think for the Falcons, like their offensive line needs help, and they have Matt Ryan still. They can't get rid of him for the next few years. So why not draft the best offensive tackle on the board, and then kind of see if that's a home run pick for them. I love Sewell in this draft. I think Cincy is crying about it because they would love to have Sewell at 5. But really, I just think that he's a home run wherever he goes. To me, he's going to be an instant starter and, is one of those guys that grades out as like an instant Pro Bowler, in the next few years. Yeah.
And it seems like he's been slipping a little bit in like mocks lately with kind of how the quarterbacks have been shaping up. He's been slipping to that like 7-8 range. And I would still be surprised if he falls that far from draft night. If he does, I would chalk it up more to like the depth of the offensive tackles than anything against him, because I could see like a Falcons or a Cincy talking themselves into, hey, let's go get whoever, Kyle Pitts here, and then we can still get a pretty good left tackle prospect at the top of the second round. So that would be the logic I see there, but I still like Sewell a lot. And Keegan, that takes us to the Bengals at 5.
Yeah, I mean, they go Kyle Pitts here. I don't know if we've had
over Jamar Chase.
Over Jamar Chase.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll explain myself. I think Joe Burrow is probably in some people's ears about Jamar Chase, and they had a great relationship at LSU. They played like crazy good football together. Mm-hmm. But I think the smarter play for the Cincinnati Bengals in the year 2021 is to take Kyle Pitts. He's the best tight end prospect we've seen. A lot of people will say since Gronk, but Gronk wasn't even the number one tight end picked in his draft. I think it was like Jermaine Gresham or something.
I'd say since Vernon Davis.
Yeah. So it's been
a prospect comp for sure.
It's been 15 years since we've seen a guy like this,
right.
And that Cincinnati system that they've run for like 30 years, no matter who the head coach has been, they've always had solid tight end production, and you're putting one of the most athletic and dominant tight ends that we've ever seen come out of college into that system. I don't think that they can pass that up. I could kind of go on all day, but we'll talk more about Pitts as a prospect. But I think that's the pick for them, just to kind of give Joe Burrow more of a security blanket than a big play threat, and that's what Jamar Chase would be. So Pitts is
not just
a safer choice.
I think, honestly, what I think is the biggest thing is that he is closer to the best tight end in the league than Pitts would be to the best wide receiver in the league. And it gives you something that other people don't have. So you're talking about position scarcity and how good it is. And so, and it's true that they may go Chase to appease Burrow. But to me, I just look at it and say, like, what is he like? I can get like the third best. I mean, he could walk into the league tomorrow and be the fourth best tight end in the league. Like, and now it may not happen, but he could. And that's not happening with Jamar Chase. So, that's why I think it makes so much more sense to go with Pitts over Chase.
So I'm going to save my Pitts thoughts for when we draft the next tight end, whether that's in the first round or we talk about them after, because I think what I want to say about Pitts is better, or contrasted against a different tight end prospect. So I'm going to say my thought, but this is, we've talked about it. He's a monster. This is a spot that makes this range just makes sense, which is really rare for a tight end. So that alone says a lot about him. Yeah. Keegan, is there a specific trait about him that really stands out? Obviously, the athleticism is insane, but kind of on field, is there one thing specifically that you really like about him?
It's like the reach for me. You could throw the ball 10 feet off the ground and he's going to go up and get it. He's just at his very worst, he's a top 10 probably red zone tight end that I've ever watched. And I'm a young guy, but it's stupid how big of an advantage he has just in terms of his length and how high he can jump, how long his arms are. So that's something that I see. And they didn't even use him like that at Florida. They didn't just say, go get in the end zone and box somebody out. Like, he's a route runner and everything like that. But I like to look at the floor of a lot of these top prospects. What's their floor at the very least? What can they bring to the table? And I think that's what he can do. He can just kind of go up and get it. And for a guy like Joe Burrow, who got his ass handed to him last year in the games that he did play, that's a nice thing to have, to just kind of be able to get rid of the ball and know that he's going to go up and get it.
Yeah, and the reverse of that is true too. Excuse me. Like, what I think for me, my favorite part of watching Gronk that really set him apart in the receiving game as a tight end was you would see Brady throw it like at his ankles, and not only would he go down and get it, but a lot of times he would go down, get it, and like not even break stride.
Yeah,
like he'd be able to go down, get it, and then run.
The Pittsburgh catch is the one that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He was just so good at. His hands were so strong that and his balance was so great that he would be able to go down and get it. And sometimes he has to end up leaving his feet to get it, and that's the end of the play. But a lot of times he'd be able to pluck it and then keep running. And like that's something Pitts is able to do as well. Obviously, I'm probably never comparing a tight end prospect to Gronk ever again, but that is something I think that really set Gronk apart as a receiver, and Pitts has that ability as well. Yeah. And that's what really stood out to me. Let's keep it moving though. Chat, you're on the clock. Another division rival pick for you here with the Dolphins. I thought this was maybe an interesting trade back scenario if Chase goes off the board here, because you would think that the Dolphins would hope Pitts goes in the top 5. So then Chase or Sewell is here. So I'm gonna cut in line, Keegan here. I'm gonna nominate Chase. Keegan, who do you want to nominate here?
Yeah, I mean the pick's gonna be Chase, but I think I'll throw Devontae Smith in there.
Okay, and then Pat, who do you want to throw out there for them?
I'm gonna go Rashawn Slater.
I like it. All right, so chat, I will allow you to trade back here if you want. I didn't let you with the Jets, but if you'd like to trade back here for the Dolphins, feel free to send that in. So your options are Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Rashawn Slater, or trade back. You have a minute to send in.
By the
And
way, I think they're trading back.
you think,
In my opinion, I think they're trading back. I just
Like,
feel like
logically, the fact that they traded back up to 6 before the draft makes me think that they won't trade back.
yeah,
But in terms of actually making this pick, unless Chase or Sewell are on the board, which in our scenario they are. Like if Pitts is on the board, Pitts is a great player. Mike Gesicki is also a pretty good player who they have for at least one more year. Like he's more than serviceable enough at tight end. I would be looking to trade back if I were them.
But see, to me, I think they trade up. I think they traded up because they thought if a quarterback drops and someone needs a spot, we're there. We could pick up another first round pick and go back to 10 or 9 or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
Ryan said it last week. They're playing gatekeeper. Yeah,
Right.
just to throw that out there, they're the quarterback gatekeeper this year.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is another scenario too where Fields going third instead of maybe a Mac Jones, who a lot of teams are probably going to be lower on.
That hurts.
At least from the outside, obviously, maybe the entire league sees Mac Jones as QB3 and Fields as 5 somehow. But that hurts the Dolphins' chances here of the trade back. So looking at the chat here, we've got Chase, Devontae Smith, Chase. Josh Norris did compare Jamar Chase to Chris Chambers. I think that's underselling Chase a little bit, but I get that kind of style. I actually like Rashad Bateman as a Chris Chambers type of comp a little bit. I can't go a single week without getting Rashad Bateman talk in there. But
yeah, the size there, it's probably perfect. I haven't looked at it, but they feel like the same exact shaped human.
Chris Chambers was a fun player. When I was growing up, kind of just getting into football, I liked Chris Chambers a lot, even though he was on the Dolphins. Chambers was really good. Chambers was underrated. I think he only made 1 Pro Bowl, but he was like a good wide receiver, like a solid wide receiver 1 in an era where passing wasn't that prevalent.
What was he?
You would hope Jamar Chase is better than Chris Chambers if you're taking him here, of course. But I liked Chris Chambers a lot.
He got a couple of years in there with Brandon Marshall, didn't he? Or am I too? Or maybe Marshall came right after.
Yeah. All right, I'm on the clock with the Lions at 7, and I'm going to look to trade back here. I need to do some quick math and see if I handle the Patriots pick, because if I do, then this is a done deal. So this is Pat, which means this is me again, which means this is me again. So Pat has the Patriots pick. It looks that doesn't make sense, right?
No, it doesn't.
Pat. Keegan, chat, Ryan, Pat, Keegan, chat, Ryan. Yeah, okay, I have the Patriots pick. That's what I thought. All right, I'm making this trade here. We're going up and we're getting Trey Lance. So I have the Lions. I'll let you guys help me negotiate what we think would be a fair price here, though. So the Lions and the Patriots are going to make a trade. 7 is on the board. 15 is on the board. Would you rather move the 46th pick this year or a 1 next year?
A 1 next year.
It's got to be the 1 next year.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's kind of what would be needed. And then I think since they know you're coming up to get a quarterback and you know that the Panthers and the Broncos are still in that potential market, I think they probably squeeze you for a little bit more. So maybe like a 4 and 5, round 4, round 5 pick spot.
Yeah, I would say.
Especially where you have that kind of cluster of picks in the 4th.
Yeah, I would think 120 or 122.
Let's do 122. So it would be 7 and 153 for 15, 122, and next year's first. Send the offer. Let's see what they do. Oh, the Patriots technically have to be accepting this. All right, they accepted it. Curious if the Lions would have accepted that if we sent it from the Patriots, but either way. Yeah. All right, Patriots are at 7, and we are coming up, and we are getting Trey Lance. I mean, this is the only better scenario here would be if this was Justin Fields, not Trey Lance, right? Like coming up, having one of those 2 guys fall to 7, you only have to give up that extra first instead of potentially 2 extra firsts or your second this year and a first next year.
This to me is the only scenario where the Patriots trade up. I don't see
knowing
them
how they
trading
operate,
up to 4.
Knowing how they operate and knowing that the price that the 49ers just set for what 4 would be. We talked about it after that trade happened, Pat, you and me. Yeah. I agree. I think that 7 is a realistic spot. Honestly, it even maybe is a bit unrealistic. I have a hard time seeing them trading away a future first in general, just as a principle for them. If one of these guys can fall in maybe 10 or 11 or 12, that's where, and you don't have to give up that first. That's possibly, a more realistic scenario. Also unrealistic where they would fall that far.
Right.
I'd be, this is the type of thing we get to that live draft show that if you weren't here at the start of the show, we're doing a live draft show for round 1 on Thursday, April 29th. Wherever you're watching us right now, you'll see us again. The 3 of us will all be here. So go ahead and check that out on draft night. If that would happen on draft night, that's going to be some great content for the viewers. We'd go absolutely nuts. It'd be problem bottles.
That'd be awesome. What's going to be
Pants off,
interesting?
as Ryan would like to say.
Pants off.
What's going to be interesting is that whose TV is, well, I guess it's more the Twitter feed, right? Whose Twitter feed refreshes first to get the notification that we're trading. You know what I mean? Like, I'm freaking out, and you two are like, "What's going on?" You know what I mean? So, but
we got a couple Trey Lance fit.
Yeah.
I like this one. Better scheme fit than Fields. At least if you're looking at learning from Cam might make more sense. But
right.
In terms of if you're going up and getting your franchise guy, you don't worry about scheme fit, because if you're looking at trading up and you identify that as your guy, he's your scheme now. You're not trading up for a guy that you think would fit your scheme pretty well. That's just a bonus if that also happens to be the best prospect.
Oh, brother.
All right.
Stay on.
Before we get too excited here, let's keep it moving forward. Pat, you're on the clock with the Panthers, who potentially just missed out on their pick at 8 here.
Yeah, so this is a tough situation for me if I'm the Panthers, because I am I'm struggling, right? I'm struggling.
Right.
I'm looking at this saying like, man, I really wish one of those quarterbacks would have dropped to me. But then at the same time, I just see offensive line. Like I get giddy with offensive line, and I maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. They went defensive line last year in the first round with Derek Brown. I kind of think like building through the trenches makes a lot of sense.
Could I interject your thought process real quick?
Yes.
Would you be interested in a trade back?
Perhaps.
Could you be persuaded? So the chat owns the Vikings pick, but yes. I think we, as the 3 of us, can kind of just control the chat's trade picks.
Right.
I could see the Vikings identifying Rashawn Slater as their have-to-get guy.
Right.
The Panthers seeing, a Christian Darrisaw and Elijah Vera Tucker, a defensive prospect still potentially there at 14.
Right.
I could see the Vikings being kind of a surprise, aggressive team here to go get.
I also think too, wide receiver makes a lot of sense for them here, but at the same time, you have to look at who's on the board. You don't know, but you assume the Giants are probably going to go wide receiver. But beyond that, you might be able to get either Smith or Waddle at all the way at 14 instead of at 8. So you could trade back. The Vikings could come up, draft their tackle, and then you could trade back all the way to 14 and still draft one of the wide receivers that you were potentially going to draft at 8 while picking up some picks. So I actually think trading back makes a lot of sense. And if the Vikings wanted to trade up, I think that makes a lot of sense to trade back to 14.
Keegan, did you have any thoughts in here?
Yeah, I was just going to say, even if they don't get one of those receivers, that's a perfect spot for them to still pick up a corner and kind of get a little bit better value out of it, plus recoup a pick. Because I think
you just think. I mean, I just look at the draft board. Like the Broncos invested heavily at wide receiver. The Cowboys drafted CeeDee Lamb last year. The Giants need someone, so they're drafting a wide receiver. The Eagles drafted a first and a second round pick, so they're not drafting a wide receiver. And the Chargers might, but I see them probably going offensive line as well to protect Herbert. So it's interesting, So Josh, to answer your question, to reset the board here, because I know people are looking at the Trey Lance pick. We gave up 15, obviously. We gave up 122, and next year's first for 7 and 159.
Something like that. The Lions' 5th round pick. We did it was 7 for 15, next year's first, and then a round 4, round 5 pick swap.
Right. There you go.
And then just looking at let's move forward with this Vikings trade for a minute.
Yep.
Looking at the board here, we'll have the Vikings coming up probably to take Slater, right?
Yeah.
We'll let the chat officially decide because it's their pick and we're trading up for them. But that would be the trade up, and then you have 6 picks. You have 6 players outside Slater that you need to be cool with if you're the Panthers, And you just look at it. I mean, you can really pair this off. You can go wide receivers. You got Waddle and Smith. Corners, you got Surtain and J.C. Horn. Offensive linemen, you got Darisaw and Elijah Vera Tucker, or a Tevin Jenkins if you want to pair up tackles. So I think that they're in a pretty comfortable spot where moving back 6 is something that they would be interested in. So let's pull it up here and we'll kind of hash out what we think a fair compensation would be. We'll do the Vikings are making the offer to come up for the pick because the Panthers would also probably be happy staying if the value's not right. So they'd be giving up 14. What else do we think they need? They have no second round pick, which makes this a little bit interesting, but they have a ton of middle round picks.
I think you could throw in 2 4s.
See, I was gonna say I don't
think that's enough.
I think you need to give up like this 3, and then if you do a 4, and then maybe even like another 4 with a pick swap.
I think maybe a 3, a 4, and possibly even like a 4 next year.
Yeah, you could definitely see
what I mean?
Future. Let's so right now we've got a 1, a 3, a 4, and then a 4 round 5 pick swap, which really only nets. Let's do this one instead. It'll net them about 17 picks. The Panthers. So let's send this one in, and if they reject it, we'll do a counter offer. And if the Panthers still reject it, then Pat, just make the pick at 8. How's that sound?
No, that sounds good.
All right, so they're sending it in now. Panthers took it. All right, so chat, you are on the board unexpectedly at 8 for the Vikings. Keegan, who are you going to nominate for them here?
Rashawn Slater.
Yeah, Slater's what really makes sense. We can play with a world where they're coming up for a corner. So I'll nominate Patrick Surtain.
Yep.
And then Pat, who you want to nominate for them here?
Well, I really wanted to be Rashawn Slater, so I'm going to go Christian Barmore.
All right. So Pat, your options here are Rashawn Slater, Patrick Surtain, and Christian Barmore. You have a minute. Send in your answer in the comments who you would take if you're the Vikings here. We have I'm not going to pronounce your name because I don't want to mess it up, so I'm sorry, but thinks it's too much for the Vikings. It is a little bit steep for a team without a second round pick, but that glut of middle round picks, for a team that's needed offensive line help for so long, I think.
So was it a third and a fourth?
It was a third, a fourth, and then a 17 pick drop on top of it from the bottom of round 4 to the top of round 5, basically.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, they've whiffed on. Especially interior guys, but the Vikings have whiffed on offensive linemen. So
right.
I think they're really kind of set on getting one of the top 3 in this year's draft, whether it be Slater, Sewell, or Darisaw.
Yeah, you don't have a second round pick, but theoretically, I mean, trade up if you have to. I mean,
right.
Trade up if you have to, or do something else.
All those middle round picks that they have, this is that range. Again, you're not giving up a first to move up 6 picks for an offensive tackle. As we were able to avoid, you probably can get around needing to give up your second.
Yep.
So that I think this is a situation. It's not necessarily one that I would predict to happen on draft night, but this wouldn't shock me, or I wouldn't clown the Vikings for doing it.
Right.
It was unanimous. It's going to be Rashawn Slater, which is obviously what we targeted. So we love to see that. Rashawn Slater comes up, and the Vikings come up to get Rashawn Slater at 8. They gave up a couple middle round picks and a pick swap. At 9, that just messed up the order. I believe this is
Keegan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Keegan, you're on the board with the Broncos at 9. Mac Jones on the board, corner on the board. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone corner probably 4 or 5 weeks in a row, so I'm going to go with Mac Jones here. Last quarterback off the board. I'm a strong believer in the group of people who say the top 5 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 10.
Yep.
I think it's a reach. I would never take Mac Jones top 10, but
right.
The NFL does – stupid people run professional football franchises, so I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, I agree. I also agree. I wouldn't be making this pick. John Elway, reportedly, or he did in an official capacity step back as de facto GM of the Broncos. It's George Patton now. Might have gotten his first name wrong there, but it'll be interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much John Elway still has an impact on this draft. And Mac Jones seems like an Elway type of quarterback, right? That kind of he's not tall.
Not tall enough. He's not tall enough, man.
But he's that the white college pedigree type
goofy
of guy that John Elway's historically fallen
looking
for. Outside of that, he's got everything else there.
True.
But But
All right, chat's up, right?
Chat, you're back on the board with the Cowboys at 10 here. Keegan, who you're going to nominate for them?
I think I'm going to go with J.C. Horn here.
Okay. I will double back up on the Patrick Surtain nomination. And Pat, who are you thinking?
Jeez. That's both the guys I wanted to nominate. I guess. Who the hell do I want to nominate? Let's go crazy. Let's do Jalen Waddle.
Jalen Waddle. Okay. So we've got Patrick Surtain, Jalen Waddle, J.C. Horn. Top 3 picks on the predictive board. That's who you have to pick from for the Cowboys here. I'm just gonna go ahead and bump our stream on Twitter real quick while the chat's sending in a vote.
Wow, Surtain taking the early lead.
Sure is. Wow, unanimous to this.
I mean,
point.
that's the slam dunk pick to me. I mean,
yeah.
I love Go ahead.
I was saying, we've talked about in recent weeks how I think Ryan and Spags are both a little bit higher on Horn than they are on Surtain. Surtain's my number one guy, but
right.
I thought Horn to the Cowboys kind of made a little bit more sense just in terms of what they have in the secondary. They don't have a lot of. He does love the pedigree. They don't have a lot of. They don't have safety help for Surtain, who I think is probably going to need it early on in his career.
Yeah.
So I thought Horn's a little bit more of a physical man-to-man guy, but who knows?
Yeah, Surtain. I mean,
we talked about it on defensive backs week. Surtain, or I'm a big fan of all. I have a top 4 corner group, not a top 3, as it generally is, with Greg Newsome joining that mix. But I'm a big fan of all of them. I wouldn't fight anyone who has Surtain CB1, which the chat just de facto made him their CB1 here, picking Surtain. But it's I personally would lean J.C. Horn. I don't honestly. It's Dan Quinn in DC or in Dallas now, right? As their DC.
Yep.
So I don't really. Neither of them quite feel like a Dan Quinn corner. Now that I think about it, really. I could honestly see Caleb Farley if he was healthy, being that more of a Dan Quinn corner. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. If we've had a couple situations where like Sewell or Pitts fall, and that would be insane for the Cowboys, and I don't think Jerry Jones would be able to help himself
right
in either of those situations. But that takes us to I have the Giants pick here. A couple wide receivers on the board. I mean, they signed Kenny Golladay is the thing, right? They still have Sterling Shepard. They still have Darius Slayton, who's we don't really know what he is yet. So I could see them going wide receiver. I think I did go wide receiver for them one time. We've been talking about them as like a big wild card spot, right? The draft can kind of swing on what the Giants decide to do here. They could kind of kick off a run of guys, depending on where they go. I'm gonna kind of swing for the fences here because this is a guy we talked about it either last week or the week before, where he could shock everyone and like sneak his way into the top 10, or he could fall to day 3 because of the medicals. But I'm gonna take Jalen Phillips here. Just athleticism at the edge just rises in the draft. It does it every single year. The reason that I wouldn't be as confident this year for Phillips is because of that injury history. But if someone's comfortable enough, I don't think he would make it to the Patriots' original pick if teams are comfortable with his medical, which obviously we have no way of knowing. So in the sake of positivity, I'm going to assume that he is.
I'm going to be the cynic. This week, he missed his pro day workout because he had COVID.
I didn't see that.
So that's, I mean, this guy, just bad juju written all over him for me. Yeah, I said last week. What'd you say?
I don't disagree. It is a tough scene.
Yeah, I said last week. I wouldn't touch him with any pick. I wouldn't pick him just because I don't. It's a luck thing, I guess. So, but somebody's going to take him. The talent's obviously there. It's just all the things surrounding that. So, we'll see. Like you said, he's a wild card.
Yeah, and like I said, athleticism plays up in the draft. This isn't necessarily the pick I would make if I were the Giants here. Although, again, I think they're a weird team where they're bad, but they're also in a bit of a luxury situation because they have like mediocre talent everywhere. So it's just kind of wherever they see best fit to improve their team, they can kind of go in that direction pretty freely without having like painful holes elsewhere. So they're a weird team. So I could see them kind of just shooting for that upside here.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
Go
It's
ahead.
tough. It's tough with and someone said with the concussion history,
Yeah.
like that's scary because you could be in a situation where the kid just never plays,
Right.
because he's hurt, and that would be devastating. You're drafting at 11, and the kid never plays. He could be the best. He could also be the best edge guy. So that's tough.
And that's where like I could see him sneaking his way into the top 10 even if like a Panthers or a Cowboys fall in love with him. I could also see him being that surprise guy still there on day 3. Like the 17th on Mel Kiper's big board still there at pick
Where because people are just saying like the medicals just scare everyone away. Right.
So he's a true wild card. We'll play on the high side of this because I don't think we've had him go this high before. So
I like it.
Pat, you're on the clock at 12 with the Eagles. Wide receiver 2 and 3 are still here for them if that's the direction you want to go.
Yes, well they can't. I mean, the Eagles went second round wide receiver 2 years ago, first round wide receiver last year. They can't take another wide receiver at top 12. I mean, they could, but
the counterpoint would be that both their wide receivers are probably bad.
I mean, that's true.
But yeah, just in terms of that, like some cost fallacy, from a human perspective, it could be easy to see them staying away.
Yeah. So for me, there's a few different places I could go here if I'm the Eagles. But I'd consider a trade back, although I don't think I want to. I also don't know if there's necessarily anyone that would like love to trade up. So I'm gonna go maybe a little bit of a surprise here, but I'm gonna go Micah Parsons here.
Oh, okay.
For the Philadelphia Eagles. He's
That's
just
an interesting fit.
He's got some issues, off-field issues, but as an athlete, as a player, I mean, he's a monster. So
yeah. You would think proximity, Philadelphia to Penn State, they might have a better idea. Obviously, any team that's going to want to get their homework done will be able to on what really happened there. But you would think that maybe they even knew what the real story there was before they even start digging in on it.
Probably, yeah.
Right, like before other teams at least.
Yeah.
So talk about Parsons a little bit. Again, as you haven't really been here. You haven't been on any of these shows yet. What do you think about Parsons as a prospect?
Athletically, he's just so good. He's so gifted. He's just such like he's the type of guy that like the Patriots would fall in love with at 15 because he fell to them and he shouldn't have fallen to them. And like he, I don't know if he necessarily fits the Patriots system as well as some other guys, but he's just so good. And like, he plays. He's a modern day linebacker where he has the agility and the side to side, right? And the lateral agility to play everywhere and the explosiveness. Like I love the kid. I mean, it just depends on if you're comfortable with the off-field stuff and if you're comfortable with that, I think he's a home run. And I think any other year, I know he's a linebacker, but I still think any other year he's a top 10 pick without that stuff. And so that stuff gets thrown in and he drops down a little bit. Obviously, in this case, not as much, but I love him as a player.
Yeah. All right, let's keep him moving here. Just Keegan on the clock at 13 with the Chargers.
Yeah,
a couple of interesting spots here.
Justin Herbert is swooning right now. Christian Darrisaw is the pick. I think he was the pick last week too. He's just
it makes too much sense.
Yeah, physically so much better than everybody else on the field. So.
Yeah, I love Darrisaw. We talked about offensive tackle week. That's my value guy at tackle is Darrisaw. But Pat, excuse me, you're back on the clock here after the trade.
Oh, I am because I have the Panthers, don't I?
Yep. And this worked out exactly like you wanted to look at wide receivers.
Yep.
There's still a corner on the board for them.
Yep. So I could go a few different ways here, but I'm going to take Devonta Smith because to me, because Waddle's gone, right? No, wait.
Oh, Waddle's still here?
Oh, wait a second. So both wide receivers last year.
Both wide receivers
because the Giants went off the board. So I'm gonna go. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go with Jalen Waddle at 14. Like, you kidding me? You trade back, you pick up a decent amount of stuff, and then you still get Jalen Waddle. I mean, come on, dude. That would be one hell of a trade.
Yeah. And I'm gonna parlay this into my pick, and then I want to go back and get your thoughts on these guys. But this is also a sneaky, massive win for the Lions here. They traded back, got the first next year, and they still get the other of the top 3 wide receivers, Devonta Smith here.
Right.
I mean, I think both these teams, after their trade backs and consecutive picks, they still end up picking back to back. They swap the order, but they still both come away with top 3 wide receivers in the class. So talk about Smith versus Waddle, why you took Waddle instead of Smith, and kind of what you like about both of them here.
5 letters. SP. Well, maybe only 4. SPEED. like speed. This dude is fast and explosive, and that's what you're looking for, right? If you're talking about the current state of the NFL right now, it's about speed. It's about being faster than the other guys around you. And Waddle does that, and he's explosive as all hell. And I know Smith put up great numbers, and he could put up great numbers in the NFL as well. But my goodness, that type of player in Waddle, he doesn't come around all the time. And so he's not as polished of a route runner as Smith. Although I think he's pretty good, right? He's not quite as good of a route runner as Smith is, but that speed is electric, and that puts asses in the seats. And so, that's got to be the pick for me.
Yeah, and I mean we've talked about it plenty, so I won't go too much into it. But I also like Waddle a little bit better here. Waddle's typically been the pick for the Lions as wide receiver 2 of late since all those trades happened.
Yep.
But I think that they're still happy to come away with Smith here. I think that they would make this trade acknowledging that they probably missed out on that tier of wide receivers, those two. Right. So you get to the pick before you, and you don't even have to stress about getting one of them because they're both there. Like, that's a huge win.
To pick up the first next year and flip those picks, to me, that's an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the Lions would be the big winner of round 1 if they get this. Yeah.
Right.
So that takes us, Pat, you're right back on the clock here with the Cardinals. Yeah.
All right, Cardinals, this is an easy one because they need a corner, and J.C. Horn is still on the board, and so it's J.C. Horn.
Yeah, this is another one that seems like we're 8 weeks in. It seems like this has happened like 6 times because, again, it just makes too much sense between the range, the need, the player.
Right.
What do you like about J.C. Horn?
He's the best, in my opinion. He's the best man coverage guy in the draft. Now, is he the best corner in the draft? We can debate that, but specifically, strictly man coverage, he's number 1. And so, now whether Arizona is going to want to play specifically man coverage or play as much as the Patriots, which is why everyone thinks he's such a good fit for the Patriots, that remains to be seen. But the length, the athleticism, the ball skills, the man coverage, to me, it's a home run pick here at 16.
And you just hit on why he's my CB1 because, now that he is a great man cover, he's the best man coverage prospect in the draft, which to me, that just makes you the best corner in the draft because every team, I won't say every team does, every team should want to be playing as much man as possible.
Right.
Man gives you so much more flexibility and so many more options on your defense versus zone. Teams generally play zone because they don't have the talent to play man. Unless you're doing like an early Seattle Legion of Boom days where you have that cover 3 and it's just unstoppable because it's new. Like, if you're just trying to get the best players possible, you're looking at man corners. So if you're the best man coverage corner comfortably in your class, which to me Horn is, then you're the best corner in the class to me.
Yeah.
I agree with the weaknesses in zone, but again, if you give me someone that's good enough that I don't have to play zone, I'm valuing that over someone who can play man and zone.
Right.
Keegan, you're on the clock here at 17 for the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to do something stupid just because that's what they would do, but I think Elijah Vera Tucker's the pick here.
Yeah.
It gives them a guy who can play 3 different positions, and they can plug and play him wherever they need him every week.
Yep. I think after that purge of an offensive line offseason they've had, it just any top offensive lineman available just makes way too much sense. Chat, it's been a little bit after we traded up for you for the Vikings, but you're on the clock here for the Dolphins. So we have, we'll have a minute on the board. Keegan, who are you going to nominate for them? Dolphins went with Jamar Chase, at 6.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Tevin Jenkins here. I still don't love what they're doing at offensive tackle, so I think he's a good choice.
All right, I will go young jock, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Pat, who are you thinking?
That's who I want to pick.
Yeah, I'll give you him. I'll nominate Kwity Paye here.
Okay, it's funny because I was going to go edge. I was like, I'll go edge then.
Perfect. All right. So, chat, here are your options again: Tevin Jenkins, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and Kwity Paye, or a trade back. So you have a minute on the clock. Go ahead and send those in now. If I'm the Dolphins here, they're like so close to being into a luxury spot. They just need that one more pass rusher. And then they can kind of just start picking best player available. So if I'm voting here, I probably go Paye, even though I don't think he's the best player of the guys we listed, but I think that's their last like big need.
Right.
And then if you get Tua looking good, then that's everything, right?
Well,
Tua
that's the
looks good,
thing,
and
right?
you're really unlocking it.
You get the wide
I mean,
receiver, and you get the edge guy.
this is absolutely correct. Running back is their biggest need. It's first round wise, no, but
Right, that's fair. Yeah, running back's the biggest need. Running back isn't like something you
Not
just
an
take
18.
first round. Right.
Right.
like, do you really want Miles Gaskin trotting out there again? Because I wouldn't if I were a
Right.
Dolphin.
Right. At
Oh,
least not as a
you
lead
need
back,
a
as like a
new
change of
running
pace
back.
guy, sure.
You need a
Yeah.
new running back, but they're gonna have they can take one in the second round. Like, those guys will be available, I
Right.
think.
I mean, Najee Harris might be there in the second round.
Yeah.
You never know. It looks like pay is going to be the vote here. The only non-pay votes we got was for Najee Harris, who wasn't on the board. So pay will go 18 to the Dolphins, and that
Alright.
takes us to me at 19. And I have the Washington football team. They missed out on all the quarterbacks, so Ryan Fitzpatrick will be their man going forward. I'll go Tevin Jenkins here. It's again, if it's not a quarterback, they're not in a particularly fun spot. They just need to fill out that tackle position. Tevin Jenkins is the next best one available. So
Right. Makes sense.
not a sexy pick. Pat, you have 20 to the Bears.
I do, in fact. I am rolling with my dude Andy Dalton, QB1, no doubt. I don't feel great about it, but he's my QB1. Where am I going to go? See, it's interesting because I'm kind of in between a few different spots, but I'm gonna go JOK here because I just feel like he fits a need for them, and he might be the best player left on the board, to be completely honest with you. And I think that's kind of what they need right now. They need kind of a lot of everything, and they always have, like, if you look back at the Bears' history, when they've been good, their defense has been great.
Yeah.
And so, like, bring in another guy that can play everywhere. He can he's a Swiss Army knife, can play everywhere, right? He can play linebacker, he can play safety, he can kind of play in the slot at Notre Dame. So, like, he can do a little bit of everything. And so I like him at 20.
I'm glad you got to be the one to pick him because I know you're a big fan. You and Keegan are kind of borderline presidents of his fan club, at least on past Twitter here. So
listen, I've said it for weeks. I hate him to the Patriots, but literally anywhere else, I think he's a great.
I don't want him here, but yeah.
Yeah.
Look,
it's a rare situation where a great player has no business coming here.
Right.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So.
Who is it now?
It's me.
It's you.
We're going to Indy. I've got it between two people, but I think I lean Greg Newsome, the corner out of Northwestern. I think it's a bigger need than the other place that I would have went, and I'll leave it to Ryan because I know he'll want to make that pick. So we'll go Greg Newsome.
All right. Okay. It took me a second to figure out what you meant, so I get where you're going with that. Chat, you have the Titans at 22 here. A bit of an interesting spot. They could go edge. They I feel like we've forgotten. Like, I feel like we mentioned it when it happened, and we haven't since. But they did sign Bud Dupree, so edge isn't like a dire need anymore. We've still been treating it kind of like a dire need, but let's see what chat thinks here. Keegan, who are you going to nominate?
Yeah, I mean, yikes. I'm going to throw Gregory Rousseau out there. He's like fallen to like the third round from being a top 5 pick, so I'll give him a little bit of love. Gregory Rousseau, what's he, number 52?
52 for them, yeah. All right, I will nominate my guy, Rashad Bateman. That A.J. Brown and Rashad Bateman on the same team that isn't the Patriots would just kill me. But I've always liked the Titans ever since I was a kid. I loved Steve McNair. I started off the show wearing a Steve McNair jersey, and I've always liked their logo and their colors and stuff. So I could live with my two sons, Brown and Bateman, being on the Titans instead of the Patriots. Pat, who'd you like to nominate here?
So it's interesting. Someone in the chat said Zaven Collins, but I'm going to go with another linebacker who has been flying up draft boards, and that is Jamin. Well, it's not Jamin, but Jamin Davis.
Yeah, Davis is a ton of fun. I still like a different linebacker. I won't say by name. A little bit better. That's been rising up boards, but Davis is a fun player too. So, chat, you can always trade back, of course. Otherwise, your picks are Rashad Bateman, Jamin Davis, and Keegan, remind me who you threw out there. Sorry.
Gregory Rousseau.
Gregory Rousseau, that's right. All right, so you got a minute here. Go ahead and send it in. We got to vote for Bateman, my guy.
I'm doing the Lord's work, letting you talk about Rashad Bateman because I want to every week, and I'm like, no, that's Ryan's guy.
And I'll let you take that because I had to talk you into that level of love for Bateman. The first time that I dropped that take, I had to kind of sway you guys a little bit.
No, you did it. You did a good job of it.
Well, he's what,
Bateman's
18th on PFF's board. I mean,
yeah, he's well. So Pat, you might not have been here for Bateman's my wide receiver too. Bateman's a stud. Bateman is I think you lock Bateman's floor is a high end wide receiver too. I think that Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle could work out great. I think that they could completely bust out. And I don't think that his ceiling is significantly lower, if lower at all. I think he does everything well except for that straight line breakaway speed, and he's still more than fast enough. You look at yes, exactly.
We're running basketball plays.
Yeah, exactly. Right? He's so good at the catch point. He's so good in his routes. He's so good everywhere. He's just everywhere that isn't with the ball in his hands, needing to make 3 guys miss or outrun them. He is elite, and he's still pretty good at that stuff. You can throw screens to him and expect him to pick up consistent yardage too. I love Rashad Bateman. I've said it a few times. I don't like throwing out the rookie that had a massive year comp for the next year. But he does remind me a lot of Justin Jefferson. Right. Justin Jefferson's more of a deep threat, and Rashad Bateman's better in the intermediate game. But height, weight, speed, athletically, and where they win, they remind me a lot of each other. And I like Justin Jefferson a lot last year too. So this isn't seeing Jefferson's success and throwing it out there. Right. Pass legend Reggie Wayne next. I think I tweeted that earlier. A high end comp for Bateman is Reggie Wayne to me. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Right. Bateman, put it on the board.
I was just say Bateman ended up being the vote. I was talking about him so much I didn't even pay attention to the chat. But Bateman's on the board. I have the Jets here. Chat went with Zach Wilson at 2. So I now have the freedom here to either get him some help, which I'm not. I could go a Terrace Marshall, Elijah Moore here. I think I went Marshall for them last week. I'm going to focus on the defense though, and I'm going to go with Caleb Farley. Obviously fallen because of that back surgery, but was fighting for that cornerback 1 role spot before the injury. Injury history scares me. Even healthy, he's probably closer to CB3 or 4 versus 1 or 2 on my board. But this is a value either way. He's on the board at 15, and the paths are still there. He's someone that you're thinking long and hard about. So 23, this is a good value in my opinion.
I freaking love Caleb Farley. Freaking love Caleb Farley. I had them in my latest mock draft on Pat's Pulpit. I had them trading back to 26 and and drafting Caleb Farley at 26. I just think. I know the back injury is scary, but the Patriots, last time the Patriots drafted someone with a back injury who missed their entire last season before they came out, it seemed to work out okay. So, I wouldn't necessarily be afraid to do it. 15 might be a little rich, but once you get into the 20s, again, he could be CB1 if he's healthy. And so, to get a guy like that in the 20s, I mean, to me it's fantastic.
Right. And, Pat, that'll lead right into you here at 24 for the Steelers, which we've kind of dubbed the trash pick of the first round. It's really tough to find a spot here that you love for the Steelers.
Yeah,
that's the way you're thinking.
It's difficult because do you go offensive line? Do you go defense? I mean, that defense last year was nasty. But do you add to it? Do you bring another edge into the game? Or do you take a D tackle? This is kind of one of those picks where it's what do they need? You know what I mean? And I guess you could also make the argument they need a running back, right? I mean, their running back kind of stink too, right? So could you go Najee Harris here? Could you go Travis Etienne here? Could you have looked at what you had in James Conner and think we need a speed back like Travis Etienne? I don't know. And so you're I'm all over the place with this pick. I don't really know what the hell I'm doing, to be honest with you. So
you're summarizing what we've been doing for 7 weeks now. This is always the worst pick of the draft,
right? Because you're just I just don't know what the hell I'm going to do because there are a lot of good players still on the board, but it's what do they really need? And so I think, in my opinion, I think their biggest need is running back. And so I'm going to go Travis Etienne here. I think it might be a little crazy, might be a little bit off the board, but I'm going to go Travis Etienne here.
For the Steelers to do crazy in a situation where even the upside doesn't really super hit them like hit that well, I would love that for the Steelers. We never wish good fortune.
And Landon Dickerson is a good point here. Like Funty back here says Landon Dickerson. I think it makes a lot of sense, but like I don't know. I think the offensive line class is very, very, very well stacked. So I wouldn't necessarily hate drafting someone here and then waiting on offensive line. You can still get someone good in the second round.
I don't know how the board shakes out for them, but you can get an offensive lineman. You can get Landon Dickerson in the end of the second round, probably early third round. So
right.
No need to reach.
Truth.
Yeah. And this takes us back to Keegan at 25, picking for the Jaguars. Obviously, you took Kyle Trask at 1.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trading back here. I've got nothing, not even a thought of somebody that I would want to pick in this spot. So I'm looking to trade back. So first, I'll let you guys have an opportunity to see if you want to trade up, I guess.
Interesting. I actually would consider Elijah Moore here. I like Elijah Moore a lot, but I do like the trade back because you could probably get Elijah Moore wherever you trade back to, right?
Exactly. And receiver's not like a ginormous need for them right now. For me, right. I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Who did I? Let me see.
If not, so you guys don't have anything.
So I have. Yeah, the 49ers aren't doing it. The Lions.
So
yeah,
next,
I think my team.
So I have what, the Saints and the Bucks.
The Saints and the Chiefs.
No, Bucks. Yeah, Saints, Bucks.
Oh, Saints and the Bucks, and then Ryan has the Ravens and the Chiefs.
Got it. Yeah, I just don't know.
We could make a play here for the Browns or the Packers, but I don't see them doing that.
I honestly feel like if I were the Bucks and ETN was still on the board, that a trade up might make sense for ETN. I don't know if it necessarily makes sense for anything else.
Yeah, I mean, if they're stuck in this spot, I guess I go Trevon Moehrig. But I don't love it. But I don't think anybody else is really willing to trade up because they know.
Yeah, I have a couple.
They know whoever they would want would be there.
I have a couple things in the back of my mind for trade ups, but I don't think the value comes here. I think it would be to get into that like back end of the first round. So I'm gonna hold here.
All right, so Trevon Moehrig.
All right, Moehrig it is.
And I can't wrap my head around how I feel about Moehrig. It would be really interesting to see him end up in like a Baltimore that is known for kind of, molding defensive players. Jacksonville would be interesting for sure. Chat, you're on the board with the Browns here. Just of note, in case you missed it today, they just signed Jadeveon Clowney to a 1-year deal. Again, 1 year doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to stay away from edge, but just worth noting while you're thinking about who you might want here. Keegan, who are you going to nominate for them?
I'm going to go with Davion Nixon because I love him.
All right. I will go I'll go Terrace Marshall. That feels like a very Browns player.
I'm gonna come back to it. I'm coming back to Jamin Davis. I don't know.
I've been saying Jamin, but I'm not sure what Jamin is correct. Yeah.
Jamin. My buddy Josh Allen's been talking about reggae, and I'm like Jamin, and it's got me all screwed up. So that's where I'm at right now with it.
All right, so chat, you can trade back here. Again, we're not necessarily sure who the trade back target would be, but you could trade back here. You could take Jamin Davis, you could take Davion Nixon, or you could take Terrace Marshall. You got a minute and go.
People forget that I discovered Jamin Davis
you were
6 months ago.
Yep. There was, I'll hype myself up for a second. One of the years, maybe 2016 it was, I did an article for some honestly trash site that I don't think is even still going. But I did a small school prospects to keep an eye out for, and every single one of them either ended up going by day 2 or was a hit. It was Aaron Jones, the running back. It was
UTEP legend
Larry Ogunjobi, who ended up being a 3rd-round pick, pretty solid player. Yep. That was my guy. We got to interview him actually on one of my old podcasts, which is cool.
That's awesome.
It was what's that dude's name? He was an edge rusher. I'm spacing on his name. He didn't end up being very good, but he was a 3rd-round pick. I had Taywan Taylor, who ended up being a third-round pick to the Titans. And then I had Nick DeLuca, who was like a day 2 prospect at linebacker, then got hurt at the end of the season, came back the next year and was a late-round pick. But Terrace Marshall was chat's slacking on us. We only got one vote on this one, but Terrace Marshall comes in as that vote. So Terrace Marshall will be.
We saw a trade. We did see a trade too.
Oh, did we see a trade?
Wow, trade from the Jets up to get Zaven Collins, but I don't know.
From the second round, so I don't think we can do it.
Yeah, we'll call a tie here. Tie goes to the pick here, we'll say, and Terrace Marshall will be the pick. So that comes to me with the Ravens. Trevon Moehrig would have been my pick here. He's off the board. I'll go Azeez Ojulari. Again, athleticism plays at edge, so I'd be surprised if he even fell this far. But he's here, so I think it just makes a lot of sense for the Ravens, replacing Matt Judon. Pat, you have the Saints here.
Yes. So, Saints. It's crazy because Jamin Davis, I've nominated twice, and I'm going to take a linebacker not named Jamin Davis, which is going to be kind of interesting, and you're going to be like, wait, what? What do you mean? But I'm going to take a guy that you referenced earlier without saying his name, flying up draft boards right now. I know he's, I think he's Spags' he might be Spags' linebacker 1 by this point, but Baron Browning from Ohio State, he is a monster. And so, the athleticism he brings, I think he posted like the raw athleticism score and it was like 9.98 out of 10 or something.
He was like top 10 among every linebacker since I forget how long RAS goes back to. It's like
13. Like it's like 1,300 prospects.
Yeah.
It's like foolish.
He's like top 10 linebacker ever in terms of athleticism. And then he's got the versatility on top of it. And he's got, again, we had a bit of Baron Browning discussion this morning on Twitter. You can wonder the downside to that versatility is that he's not necessarily like super instinctual at any one position, but that is for the Patriots specifically. That is like the perfect type of guy where you sit him behind Dante Hightower for a year, you kind of ease him in like you did with Josh Uche last year.
Yep.
And you might, between him and Uche, you might just have a couple studs for the next like 7 to 10 years on linebacker.
Right.
I'm all in on Browning to the Patriots. Keegan, our last round of picks here. You have the Packers for your final pick.
Elijah Moore. I said it last week. Aaron Rodgers might retire.
I can't believe you. I can't believe you did it. If I had the pick, I definitely wouldn't be going wide receiver. Just in case there's any Packers fans out there that's listening, just to kind of rub it in their face a little bit more.
I was gonna make balls to the wall Patriots straight up for Elijah Moore if he was still there at 32. So that's we don't get any fun tonight. But
sorry guys.
I think that pick makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I thought I messed up and completely missed somebody. I was like, oh damn, they're gonna make fun of me.
Just bumming out. Chat, you have the Buffalo Bills here. Keegan, who are you gonna nominate for them?
I think I'm gonna go Najee Harris here. They need a running back.
I'll go Eric Stokes, the cornerback out of Georgia.
Oh, okay. Remind me, you went Ojulari already, right?
Yep, Ojulari's off the board.
Okay, so should I do it again? Should I go with Jamin Davis again?
One more time?
I might have to go. You know what? There's been a few comments in the chat. I like it. I'm gonna go Zaven Collins.
Okay. All right. Let's start it up then. So again, chat, your options are Najee Harris, Zaven Collins, and Eric Stokes, or a trade back. On the board now. Send them in. Wow. Oh, okay. All right. I see what just happened.
It's me.
I see what just happened.
Oh, we got a tie. Oh, ties.
Collins taking the lead.
Oh,
Najee.
Going back. All right. You guys got 40 seconds, 35 seconds. Send it in here.
Collins.
Harris. I'm counting Pat's Pulpit as all one vote. One. Yeah, I mean it's.
No, wait a second. You can't count the Pats.
No, you can't count it. That's me.
If it ends in a tie here, they're gonna end up being the tiebreaker. So if you want,
I guess that's true.
5 seconds here to send it in. We'll go 5. We'll give them 10 more seconds to break the vote. Let's see if we get one more in here. All right. Nothing came in.
Tie goes to Ryan.
Najee Harris.
Yeah, let's do Najee.
We'll go Najee Harris. And then I have the Chiefs here. And I think this is a sneaky trade back spot. I'll go Kadarius Toney, though. I think that was like the first pick we ever made for them, and he hasn't been back in that spot since. So we'll just throw it out there. I don't love the player, but
I'm sorry. Who did you take with
Kadarius Toney for the Chiefs?
Kadarius Toney. Got it.
And then you'll round us out here with the Bucks.
Yes. So as the Bucks, I am not very happy that Najee Harris got taken because that was my pick at 32. They don't have, again, they don't have a ton of other needs. Other than that, I don't believe. And there's, I mean, of course, you know, you can. I'm a believer that you can always go offensive line.
Look, people
anywhere.
want Davion Nixon to get picked.
But, I mean, you know, I know you love him. I know he's your D tackle one. I know that.
That's my boy.
You know, I just man, it's tough. And the other part of it too is that I could make a case for a linebacker, except, you know, they brought back all their linebackers too. So they did just sign Gio Bernard too. So that's, man, I'm at a loss right now because I don't know what the heck they're going to do.
You can blame Keegan for taking Elijah Moore at 29, because otherwise I'd be banging down your door to get the
100%. And you know what? And you know what? I would even consider taking him at 32 if he was still there. And so that's the other part of it too, where it's like I'd consider, but anyone that I would consider at wide receiver at this point is gone. And so I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. You know what?
I have a trade option for you. I have a trade proposal for you.
Well, you know what? All right. Okay. Well, go ahead.
No, if you're happy with the pick, go ahead, take it.
I mean, listen, I think that what's his name? What did what's his name come back on it? Did David come back on a 1-year deal? Or was it a multi? Was it a multi-year deal?
I don't remember the year. I think he got a decent contract. Yeah.
Oh, Josh is in the chat. Josh Allen, right to the Bucks. Josh Allen, what are you going here, brother? Where are you going? 32 for the Bucks.
While we wait to see what he thinks, I'm gonna send in.
Oh, he said let's trade back.
Okay. All right. So here's what I'm thinking. Couple good linebackers on the board. Lions got a nice little haul from a trade back. Might give them some room to be aggressive here. I'm wondering if they maybe want to come up and get a Jamin Davis. So let's. They don't have a ton of picks this year, but they did recoup that second rounder next year or the first rounder next year.
Right.
So if they go get another first rounder this year, I have 2 first-round picks 2 years in a row. They're only dropping 9 spots, so it really wouldn't be too much. Maybe might have to be these 2, but then you can probably get like a trade back here. Or maybe you look at the future picks and you take. Look, they have 3 first rounds. How do they have 3? Oh, from the Stafford deal, obviously.
Right.
They have 3 firsts next year, so you look at maybe like they're okay with giving up like a third next year and then like a 4th this year, right. And then you get maybe like a 5th or a 6th back.
Yeah, like that.
So the Bucks would be getting 41, 122, and a third next year, and I feel like that even might be a little steep, but and then the Lions would be getting that 32 and 176.
Josh, what say you? What do you think?
Yeah, Josh, we'll give you final say here for the Bucks.
Is he there?
We'll give him a few seconds to send it. If not, I'll just send it. We'll get out of here. We do have one more topic after the draft before we head out.
All right.
Do it. All right. You send it in. Let's send it. See what they think. They took it. All right. So the Lions are coming up to 32, and they're going to take. Okay. So now I did say Jamin Davis. Do we think they'd like Zaven Collins better? Which linebacker do you think they'd like you? No, we think that they'd like Jamin Davis better. We'll go Jamin. We'll go Jamin. We've talked about him too much to not get him into the first round.
Yeah. Right.
Shits and giggles, who would be there at 41. You'd probably be looking. Of course, we just lost the big board. You'd probably be looking at like pretty much. I mean, most people. Obviously, only 8 picks are going to happen between there. But you would be looking at. You'd probably be able to go any position that you wanted to comfortably.
Maybe even Davion Nixon.
Right.
Who
will bite your kneecaps off there? That is a good. The answer's probably Collins there, but
probably that's probably true.
All right, so let's recap this really quick. The Jaguars went Trevor Lawrence. We had Zach Wilson and Justin Fields finish that run of quarterbacks. Penei Sewell goes to the Falcons. Kyle Pitts to the Bengals. Jamar Chase to the Dolphins. The Patriots made a big trade up with the Lions, gave up their first-round pick next year and a pick swap later in this draft for Trey Lance. The Vikings followed suit with a trade up to get Rashawn Slater, gave up a couple day 2 picks and then a day 3 swap for Rashawn Slater. Denver took Mac Jones to finish out that big 5 in the top 10. Patrick Surtain goes to the Cowboys. Jalen Phillips rose up the board to the Giants. Micah Parsons to the Eagles. Christian Darrisaw to the Chargers. Panthers and the Lions came out big winners after these tradebacks, still getting Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith respectively. J.C. Horn, again, a classic pick for us. Elijah Vera Tucker, because the Vikings weren't there, taking up 14, falls a little bit to 17. Kwity Paye to the Dolphins. Tevin Jenkins to the football team. Young Jock to the Bears. Greg Newsome to the Colts. Rashad Bateman to the Titans. Caleb Farley to the Jets. Travis Etienne to the Steelers. Trevon Moehrig to the Jaguars. Terrace Marshall to the Browns. Azeez Ojulari to the Ravens. Baron Browning to the Saints. Elijah Moore to the Packers. Najee Harris to the Bills. Kadarius Toney to the Chiefs. And Jamin Davis to the Lions with a trade up after they added some assets there. So
Love it.
let's talk tight ends, because we obviously only got one into this draft. Pat Freiermuth. I'm going to ask for you guys' opinions here in a second, but I abstain from talking Kyle Pitts until we talk Pat Freiermuth, because I think valuing Pitts works better after we talk about Freiermuth. Freiermuth to me is a good player, right? He could slip into round 1, and I don't think anyone would be shocked by it. He's pretty easily tight end 2 in this class. You look at him, and he just looks like every single pretty good tight end of the past few years, like Kyle Rudolph, Jared Cook. Where I wanted to go with this is that I think there's a really big gap of guys at tight end where if you get to a certain skill level, you can get better than that, and it really doesn't matter until you break into that elite range. You can be league average to pretty good at tight end, and it really doesn't matter. You're really not adding much value to your team as long as you hit that bucket of being average until you get to that elite level, and then you really unlock your team. And that's where Pitt's value comes into me, because I think Pitts has the ability to get to that elite level that unlocks an offense to go from being really good to just being absolutely unfair. Freiermuth strikes me as that type of guy who can get to that top end of, that tier below elite, where he's maybe a Hunter Henry, obviously we see here, who isn't quite elite, but he's still a really good player who's going to make your team better. But how much does that really matter versus a in his prime Kyle Rudolph? Not a ton, right? Not a ton. It's a marginal upgrade, but that's a position where there isn't a big difference until there's a massive difference.
Right. At any time, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Keegan, if you want to go, but at any time someone is called mini Gronk, it's terrifying, because what that means is that, oh my God, Dallas Goedert gets called mini Gronk. Mike Gesicki gets called mini Gronk. These guys, it's the next Gronk. So what it means is that here's a guy that looks like Gronk, talks like Gronk, right? Yeah, great. He looks like Gronk in college, but when he gets to the pros, can he still do that? Gronk is a unicorn. He just that's who he is. You can't. You don't look at Kyle Pitts and think Gronk, because he's a monster who is an athletic freak in a different way than Gronk is, right? Yeah. You can't expect, I'm going to draft this guy and he's going to be Gronk. That's foolish to think that, right? And so anytime you're talking about the next Gronk, it's always oh man, could hit, but also might not be great and could take 3 or 4 years to get there. Look at TJ Hawkinson, who's now 2 years in. At the end of his second year, we started to see some of what we wanted to see from Hawkinson, but he's still not there yet as an elite level tight end yet. And he got taken in the top 10. So it's it's scary. And to me, that's why Freiermuth, to me, I'd be surprised if he got taken in the first round.
Right. And Keegan, I'll let you get Freiermuth thoughts in a second, but that Hawkinson is a great example of what I was talking about, that the name just didn't pop into my head before. But Hawkinson's arguably the 5th best tight end in football right now. But if you have even present day Kyle Rudolph versus TJ Hawkinson, your offense really isn't functionally that different, right? Because you need to be at that next level, like the Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz of a few years ago, Darren Waller, George Kittle type good at tight end to make a difference, but then you make a massive difference. Kyle Pitts can make that massive difference. Pat Freiermuth could be like that TJ Hawkinson, improves your team, but isn't a difference maker.
Yeah.
But Keegan, where do you stand on Freiermuth?
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of the tight end work for me and Spag's spreadsheet, and the way I saw it was there's a guy at the top tier, and then there's a lot of guys in the middle tier. And I think Freiermuth he's closer to the middle tier than he is to the top, so that's why I wouldn't take him in the first round. I think he's a really good player, but I also think, probably more than other people, that there are a lot of really good tight ends in this draft class. Maybe not complete players and guys who can do everything, but guys who can fit a role really well, like you were saying, and kind of they're going to make your team. They're not going to make your team a hell of a whole lot better, but they're going to fill a role. They're going to do their job. They're going to kind of be valuable for the spot that you're going to pick them. So, and kind of just a grand scheme of things, I picked Pitts over Chase earlier, and the reason I did that was because you've seen in recent years the tight end classes just aren't getting that much better. Just people don't know how to play the position right now. It's not being taught, at lower levels. And once these guys get to college, a lot of them are receivers switching over to become tight ends, or
right,
just big bodies who are being molded into the position. So you're not seeing well-developed tight ends like Kyle Pitts every year. That's why he's so valuable. And every year the receiving classes are getting better. The wide receiver classes, we saw 2 years ago it was good. Last year it was great. This year it's even better. Next year it's probably going to be better than it was this year. It's just the way football is going in the developmental stages. Receivers are going to be getting better. Tight ends are going to be getting worse. So I think when you have the opportunity to take a guy like Pitts, you need to, just because his value is the highest that it's ever going to be in terms of where he stacks up to the rest of the tight ends in the class.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the transition's tough anyways, right? But and then even after Freiermuth, I mean, it drops off even more after that. Like right. Brevin Jordan, I guess, might be the third tight end on the board. He ran a 4.6 40.
The testing just
yikes.
killed
and he's trying to put on more weight, and I know that, and so that might have messed with some of his stuff. But he's a project, right? Like these guys are, Tommy Tremble, he's a project. Like these guys, the kid from BC, he's a project. Yep. Hunter Long, okay, might be a good blocker, but is he really going to be an impact in the passing game? I don't think so, right? So that's going to be a guy that's going to go in the 4th, 5th round, and so outside of Freiermuth and Pitts, I don't think anyone's going to go day 2 even.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, with this middle class of guys, they're all guys who can do one thing really well and need to, like you said, projects. They need to work at everything else. Like Tremble can block, showed nothing as a receiver. Hunter Long can't play in between the 20s. He's a red zone guy. He's a short area guy. So all of these guys have one thing that they do okay, and then the rest of it, it's a lottery. You're taking a ticket on who you think's good. And you mentioned Brevin Jordan, Noah Gray out of Duke. Like a ton of these guys, they can do one thing, but they can't do anything else. So it's tough, especially in this class. So I think Freiermuth's value is probably a little bit higher than it would be in other years. But Kyle Pitts is in this draft, so he looks like nothing compared to what Kyle Pitts looks like.
Right. You guys just threw out a bunch of names, but let's right before we get out of here, I want you guys to each throw, if you have one, if you don't, that's fine. A day 3 type of that later round prospect that you might be interested in at tight end.
Yeah, I really like Tony Piolian, I think it is. Some weird name. He's like 6'7". I believe he's out of Virginia Tech. He's just ginormous, just a huge receiver. He's got a little bit of athleticism to him. I really like him as a project guy. We saw who was the kid out of Stetson a couple of years ago. I love Trey McKitty as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a kid out of Stetson a couple of years, Donald Parham, who is just a behemoth. Played basketball. He's one of those guys. And I like him as just a red zone target, kind of see what you can get out of him in the early years.
Yeah. All right, Pat, you have anyone, and then we'll get out of here.
Not really. I mean,
it's a class, right?
Josh said Trey McKitty. Trey McKitty's interesting to me. He put on a little bit of a show at the Senior Bowl, which I liked. He didn't really do much at Georgia, but he, he's kind of that guy that can kind of come in and play well. but you just don't know. Like, I don't know. I do think the Jacob Harris is fascinating too. Again, more of a wide receiver than he is a tight end. So it's like, is he going to play tight end? Is he going to try to make the transition? Like, what's that going to look like? It's just, there's a lot of questions that are kind of left unanswered. I guess for me, the name that I always come back to when I'm doing mock drafts is Trey McKitty, because I saw what he could do at the Pro Bowl, and we saw it in flashes. You didn't really see it at Georgia, right? But you saw it in flashes at the Senior Bowl. And so I think that, he's intriguing to me. Whether he'll do anything or not, who knows? And Hunter Long, like Josh said too, like we talked about him already, he's a blocker. Like, so he can come out and block, and you're going to get that from off the bat at least. And then you say, okay, I can live with the blocking, and then hopefully I can develop into a pass catcher at some point down the line.
All right, guys, that'll do it for us tonight. We got 2 more weeks of the show until we get to that live draft show on that Thursday night of round 1 of the draft, like we mentioned. So if you guys haven't heard, we are doing a live draft show on Thursday night for round 1 of the draft, obviously a couple weeks from now. So definitely be on the lookout for news about that. We'll have guests. We'll be hanging out. It'll just be a fun time. Second screen, come talk the draft, talk about whatever the Patriots do, what they don't do. It'll be a fun time.
Yeah.
Pat, thank you for filling in for Spags tonight.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been a lot of fun. And I do think the next few weeks, we're going to try to get this out as a podcast as well, because I think people are going to be interested in listening to this leading up to the draft, just because we're getting so close to draft time that people that couldn't make the live draft, of course, you can go back and watch it. But I think people like being able to go listen to it as in podcast form. So I think even a Saturday release for a podcast, I think makes a lot of sense.
All right, that'll do it for us tonight, guys. Again, Pat, thanks for hanging out with us. And,
yeah, thanks for having me.
Spags will be back next week. We'll be highlighting running backs. That's our last position. Format to be determined, but we'll see you guys next week, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Thanks for hanging out.
See you guys. I think he left the